Good morning, colleagues. Welcome to the IGBIS conversation with the leaders session. My name is Meshia Mariana, the chair-elect for IGBIS for this current term of office. I will be the chair of the session, and then once again, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the third session of IGBIS, our long series of conversation with leaders in the LIS profession. The purpose is to encourage LIASA IGBIS members to take up leadership position in IGBIS, in the broader LIASA community and in the LIS profession at large. We ask our leaders to share their key moments and insights that motivated and inspired them to lead and take up leadership positions, and then they will share all their experiences. Today, we have the pleasure of having a conversation with Ms. Ujala Satgoor, former LIASA president for the term 2012 through 2014. She is currently the executive director of University of Cape Town Libraries and has previously held leadership roles in academic library services at Rhodes University and as well as the University of Pretoria. Her involvement in the LIS and higher education community also includes positions with the Committee of Higher Education Libraries of South Africa, CHELSA, and the South African National Library and Information Consortium, SANLIC. Colleagues, I just want to remind you that this session will be recorded, and then please feel free to type your comments and questions in the chat function throughout the session. Ujala, over to you.
Thank you, Marcia, and good morning, everybody. I would like to apologize firstly for delaying the start this morning. Murphy always likes to join us, much as we have rehearsed, but technology always comes into play as well. So Murphy wants to join the conversation today. Also, I would like to take this opportunity of thanking the IGBIS committee for initiating this fabulous conversation series. And, as I begin to prepare to exit the sector, I love watching and observing the developments. And at times I'm extremely pained to see what is happening. And then on the other hand, when I see initiatives such as this, I say, okay, there's hope really, so that we can have constructive engagements and conversations. So thank you for joining me this morning. And wanting to get to know me a little bit better. But I also see this as an opportunity to share with you my own journey, my own experiences, and some of the lessons learned along the way. It hasn't been an easy task. It hasn't been an easy journey. But let's go through some of the questions that were posed to me and see what we come up with. Ingrid, next slide, please. Okay, so the question that was posed to me, what prompted me to be a librarian? And so I framed this from my first experience as a child. I think it goes back to my childhood of being raised in an environment that actively encouraged books and reading and critical thinking and robust conversations, and being surrounded in this particular environment contributed to my first formative intellectual, mental, and emotional development around engaging with the written word, and how that actually influenced my thinking, my articulation, my ability to speak, and having to be able to delve into imagination And I think that was so crucial for my own development, that when it became critical for me to make the decision of what to study and where to study, it informed it very, very much so. I started out studying law and theology of all things. I loved the religions of the world. And so I was at the University of Natal, the then University of Natal in Pietermaritzburg, and I was in the first batch of 50 students who was granted permission to attend a white institution. So that gives you a sense of how old I am. And I must admit that whilst I enjoyed the course content, I did not enjoy the experience of being at an institution that was predominantly white with a lot of Rhodesians at that time. And so the atmosphere in that environment was not your most conducive, but there were amazing, amazing students who were part of my formative years as a young adult as well, and forays into politics, student politics, etc. I think it was in my third year that I decided I wasn't going to continue as a formal student. And I told my dad, you can pay my registration fees, but if you look at that large oak tree, I'm going to sit under that tree for the rest of the year. And what I then did was I chose to go and work as a library assistant in a container library in Northdale, which was a working class community at that time of about 50,000 Indian families, Indians, in various family formations. And this was the one beacon of hope for many children, for many learners, and for many housewives, homemakers, etc. And I used to just marvel at the way these human chains would literally turn around the corner, waiting in all weathers, patiently for the library, this container library door to be opened. And I think an affirmation of the impact of our work at that time was shared with me when I was in Grahamstown, and a very dear friend said, I met a leading cardiologist who asked me if he knew my and shared my name. And this friend of mine said, yes, I know her. And this person who eventually became this leading medical practitioner said, it was her engagement with me as a learner in this library that convinced me of the power of reading and books. And I am who I am today. And very often we do not think about the impact we have. And so when I saw how libraries are the people's universities, public libraries especially, how they influence and impact people's lives. We don't measure it. We don't have a sense of the impact we're having. The child that we turn away, or the person that we snap at, or the person that we engage with and said, I'll keep the books for you, whichever titles you like, or the authors you like, you'll be the first to know. Our simple engagements influence and impact people so tremendously. And we really do underestimate the power that we have, especially as professionals and workers within this environment. And so when I had to make that choice, after I had completed my honors degree, I went back to university, I must admit, after working as this library assistant, and I went back to university, but I shifted my studies to a classical education, and I ended up doing an honors degree in Sanskrit, the oldest classical language. And I had to make the decision, should I pursue a master's in this, or should I go elsewhere or change direction? And I got a job at the Don Africana Library in Durban, and I hope there are some of you here from Durban. who shared those experiences with me. And it was a fantastic experience. I don't know why the head of the libraries took a liking to me. And she says, no, I don't want you behind the desk or acting as a librarian at the branch. I want you at the Don Africana Library. And she made sure that I worked there as a research assistant. And I must tell you that my first day there, I opened the door to the closed access collection. And what confronted me, what was presented to me were these rows of shelves of banned books. And this was, I think, in 1989. And when I looked at the height of repression at that time and political agitation and all the protests and the call for the freeing of Nelson Mandela and the unbanning of the ANC, etc., at that time, to be confronted with the power of the written word, books that were banned and that were seen as being detrimental to people's thinking, etc. And I said, but this is where I belong. This is what I want to have access to. This is what I want to share with people. And then I chose to go and do my postgrad diploma at UCT. And when I was there at the school at UCT, it was an amazing year that I spent there. But I vowed never to work in Cape Town. That's why I truly believe when they say never use never, it's true. Because I came back full circle to UCT as its eventual head of libraries. But I must say the decision to be a librarian was very conscious. It was deliberate. And I think I've had very good role models, people who are able to show and demonstrate their passion for this particular profession. And I have not regretted this decision at all. I do not see this as a bottom of the barrel or a last resort. If I had to relive my life, I will choose this profession again. Next slide, please, Ingrid. Ingrid, you need to move on to the next slide. Thank you. So the journey that I have made, and I've alluded to it already, from library assistant to research assistant to information officer to working in the association as the project manager of its donor-funded initiatives, to head of a section at University of Pretoria, to then director of library services at Rhodes, and now as executive director of UCT Libraries. It's been a long journey. It's been many decades, but it's been a journey that has exposed me to every facet of working in a library, of the association, understanding the sector. It has allowed me to gain this wide-ranging experience and understanding of the importance of libraries, seeing this network of libraries. I wonder how many of you actually realize how networked we are as a sector with our provincial library services, our metro library services, our local government library services, academic libraries, national libraries, etc., school libraries, special libraries, and when we need to actually engage and to organize ourselves, we underestimate the importance of this. I recall having the conversation when the post offices were in a stage of deep decline, and the issue of how and where do pensioners get their payouts. And I raised the issue. I said, what about the network of public libraries? You have over 1,500 public libraries in this country that are located in communities. Why can't we use them? The person looked at me and said, I don't know anything about this. And yet we are so integral to social development, to educational priorities, to socio-economic priorities, etc. But we ourselves do not claim our space. And that's because we underestimate our own value and importance to social development in South Africa. We tend to latch onto that which we know, that which we have, and that what we do. And we do not want to see ourselves beyond the boundaries that we have enclosed ourselves within. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a colleague as well, and it is around redesigning of library spaces, etc. I said, but everybody else has an opinion about what libraries ought to be like and what should be in the library. Have you spoken to the librarians? Have you spoken to the communities? Is the library represented in your task team? And he looks at me and he says, no. I said, but I don't come and tell you how to run your department. Why are you presuming to think about how we should be doing our work? And that, again, people, has a direct correlation to what is our level of engagement, firstly, with our profession, with our communities, with the broader sectors that impact upon us and that which we impact as well. Or are we just seeing our choices to be a librarian as a job? This is what I'm doing. And so whilst I firmly believe that we work within a sector, we have not taken ownership of it. And there's a big difference, because when you take ownership, you protect, you are fierce, you are passionate, you demonstrate your knowledge, you understand the changes, the drivers for change, etc. You look for sustainability, but rather we step back, fold our arms and look helpless and say, there's nothing we can do about it. And so we look at career pathing without understanding where I could make a very big difference. I've been very fortunate. And again, it's been very deliberate. I've had experience, I've deliberately chosen to gain experience of public libraries, special libraries. I worked at the, Don Africana itself is a special library. And I truly hope that it's growing and that it's not just a static service. I worked as an information officer at the Consulate General of India, and I was responsible for setting up their cultural center. And that gave me an insight into how a special library ought to work, to be, and what should it offer, and collection management, etc. Library associations, I think that opened up a whole vista for me, a whole world of understanding the world of libraries and things library related. We tend to be very narrow in our purview of the profession we belong to, but being involved in the Library Association, first as an employee and then as president, it just gave me a whole new insight as to how powerful this profession is. And then, of course, experience of working in academic libraries. The career path has not been easy. It's a road well-traveled. It's a road that came with its own bumps and twists and turns. I've had to relocate. I've had to make several sacrifices. But in the process, as an individual, it honed me. It strengthened me. It fine-tuned my professional persona. It enabled me to be broader in my thinking, to have this bird's eye view, and to be able to have clear thinking about the paths that I have chosen and the responsibility of the institutions that have been entrusted to me. These were not easy decisions, but they were decisions taken in a very considered way. And nothing is coincidental. I don't believe in things being coincidental. There's a reason behind things. There are reasons why those certain phone calls get made to certain individuals and under certain circumstances. Be open to that. Don't be self-absorbed and say, well, I am who I am and I'm never going to change. Or I have got my master's and my PhD, I'm entitled to that position. You're not entitled to anything. You have to work to earn it. You have to gain the experience. You've got to marry the experience to the requirements, your own development. And it's a fascinating journey. Embrace the road that you have chosen. Ingrid, next slide, please. And so the issue of becoming a leader, sometimes, people say, well, leadership is entrusted to me and it gets thrust upon me, etc., or upon somebody. Yes and no. Leadership is a quality that surfaces at different times in our lives, in the conditions of our lives. Many of us are very happy to be followers, which is equally important, because without followers, you cannot be a leader. But what does that mean as well? That from being a follower, you can also become the leader. And how do we engage with that? How do we ensure the transition of that individual? Or how do we shift positions with a sense of comfort, that I'm quite comfortable taking the back seat at certain times? And so leadership should not only be seen as positional, and unfortunately in South Africa at the moment, we are stuck and hung up on positional leadership. Fine, you get put into a leadership position, but do not put down roots in that seat. Recognize that it is a temporary position, because without growing yourself in that position, you are not going to grow those around you. The responsibility that's attached to that position is enormous. It's not about the title. It's not the doctor, not the professor, not the DVC, not the ED. It's the person that is in that seat and how that person actually develops that position and develops in that position and develops those around that position, or that position is responsible for. So when I remember I had left my position at the Consulate General of India due to certain personal conflicts. And I had taken a year's break, and I did a bit of traveling at that time. And I spent about 2 months in Zimbabwe on sort of various retreats, etc. It was fabulous. And coming out of that, I realized that I want to remain in the sector, but I want to consciously work on leadership, developing leadership. And lo and behold, I had applied for a position at the association, and they said, no, we don't think you are ready for, you are the right person for this position, but we are going to be having, we have been granted an award of $250,000 to look at leadership development, and we'd like you to apply for that job. I did, and I got it. And I had to relocate to Pretoria, and I was and worked at the LIASA office. And since then, library leadership development has become this utmost passion of mine. And when I look back over the last 20 years, I cannot believe that it's 20 years, almost a generation of librarians benefited from this. And what a difference it made. The South African Library Leadership Project was a groundbreaking project, first of its kind, a partnership leadership project. And there were 23 middle to senior library managers who were taken on board. and 16 of them came back and just took over Liasa. Some people say, oh, wow, there was a coup. We can call it whatever we want to, but I think it just invigorated Liasa at that time. I mean, you had 2 presidents, you had several secretaries, portfolio holders, branch chairs, and other committee members, etc. And there was a difference. Our current president is a product of that particular project as well. Then we had the Carnegie Library Leadership Project. This was, I had left Liasa by then and joined University of Pretoria, and we still believed very much in library leadership development. And here again, I must credit the forward thinking, the visionary thinking of the first leadership of Liasa, who embraced this notion that there's a dearth of leadership skills in this country. We're rebuilding the country. We're rebuilding the sector. We lack leadership. We need to speak as one voice. We have to merge the sectors, and we need strong leadership for that. And so the second leadership project, this is now $1 million grant that was granted by Carnegie, and 120 library professionals were selected, consciously selected based on their positions, where they were located, the 9 provinces, representation from Liasa, involvement in Liasa, public and academic libraries representation, and how would they grow the sector. People were put through their paces, and this was a program that was in partnership with the University of Pretoria's Department of Information Science. So there was an academic component to it as well. So 109 people actually completed and met all and complied with all the academic requirements, and were awarded certificates of participation. And I was looking at the Facebook page yesterday, and I'm going to change it to the Carnegie Library Leadership Academy alumni, because I think it'll be wonderful to determine where everybody is at the moment. How have these programs benefited you? Where, what has been your career progression? Because so many people made life-changing decisions after that, but what has been the impact on the sector? And that is what we need to ascertain as well. My belief in Liasa as a leader is non-negotiable. Liasa has the leadership capabilities to lead this profession. It is us as members that's failing it. And I will say this repeatedly. Liasa is the professional body. I believe in it. I drove that process. It gave us the opportunity, and it gives us the opportunity to professionalize a profession that is invisible. It allows us to raise the visibility, to raise the respect around this profession, and it allows you the opportunity to claim your place as a professional within the workforce milieu. However, Liasa is as strong as its members and the members who actually engage with it, who sustain it, who pay their fees, who get involved, who put up their hands for elections, etc. We are only as good as the people that we represent. The fact that we cannot attract volunteers to take up leadership positions says a lot about where we are and who we are as a profession. Not about the association, but us as individual professionals. And we mustn't shy away from that fact, because the association can only be as strong as its member base. The levels of involvement, the levels of commitment, the unconditional support. I look at the ALA, I look at SILIP, I look at the Australian Library and Information Association. Nobody questions, why must I be a member? They willingly register. They willingly pay their fees. They willingly take up committee responsibilities. But why in South Africa, we question everything? Oh, what does Liasa do for me? It's rather, what should I do for Liasa? So Liasa as a leader has earned that position, firstly, through its formation, its ability to attract funding at that time, its ability to host programs and deliver. It earned this title and accolade on the continent, but we are fast being contested as the leader on the continent. And again, I will place the responsibility fully at the door of every professional in this country, because we are not supporting Liasa as the leader of the profession. And I'm very, very concerned about this, because I know, having led Liasa, what it can achieve, what it can do, what it did achieve. We hosted IFLA, everybody came, everybody celebrated one of the best congresses. We host an annual conference, we host South African Library Week, but we are still so apologetic or embarrassed to be associated with it. Seize the opportunity to lead Liasa. You will not get this opportunity often. And when you get asked to serve on committees, do it, because leading Liasa grows you as a professional. I would say leading Liasa contributed to who I am today as well. Much as I contributed to ensuring Liasa as the leader, but it also refined my associations, it refined my network, so that when I do reach out to people, they listen, they come forward, they say, we will help you. Don't you want to be in that sort of position where people are willing to help you, and especially through your association, your professional associations, etc. So think about these things, colleagues, that when you want to embrace leadership, there's a huge responsibility. It's tiring, it's exhausting, but it's extremely exhilarating and rewarding. Don't shy away from it. Be bold. I'm looking forward to retirement, but I worry about, I don't know whether there would be a position for retired presidents in Liasa in the future. We must think about that one. I hope Nazim can shed some light on that one. Ingrid, next slide, please. I must take note and take heed of time. I can deviate a lot. Next slide, please, Ingrid. Okay, this is just some pictures of the Carnegie Library leadership groups, and you may recognize some people, but I wanted to share particularly this quote from Viva, who is a public librarian in the Eastern Cape, and she was also named one of our librarians of the year. I learned that library leaders can create the future their patrons want to live in. And I just think that we need to ponder, each one of us needs to ponder, what does this quote mean? And it encapsulates everything that we should be doing as librarians, particularly if we look at the state of South Africa today. How can we make a difference? How can we contribute to a brighter future as well? Next slide, please, Ingrid. Okay, what are some of my personal lessons that I have learned and that have influenced me thus far? And I'm going to hark back to when I was in high school, and I recall a conversation between my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, and my grandmother. While she was a traditional homemaker, she was very determined that we all had an excellent education. And I used to spend a lot of time with them, and I was very proud to be able to do so. My grandfather was a school principal, and he turned on, and it stuck with me forever. And he turned around and he told her, he says, you don't have to worry about what she's going to do. She can be whatever she wants to be. And we are here to support her. And that has been integral to my growth and my development, because I knew that my family believed that I could be whatever I wanted to be, and that they would be there to support me. Various decisions in my life, personal decisions, required a lot of boldness and courage. From getting married to getting divorced to not having children to relocating, at the drop of a hat, choosing a different career path, etc. I had to dare to be bold and courageous. I could not sit back and say, I'm single, I cannot travel, I cannot do this. I had to look at my future. I had to look at what was driving me and what was my personal vision and goal. I always say, I want to make a difference wherever I am. And that's what drives me. I want to connect people to whatever they want, whatever their ideas they may have, to that which will make it happen. I want to help people realize their potential. And for me to be able to do that, I have to be bold. I have to be courageous, but I have to dare to do that. I must be willing to take the risks. And that comes with self-awareness. I love having conversations with Ujala, with myself. I am my own best friend. But I kind of draw the line sometimes when I find myself scolding myself, and it's quite hilarious. Thankfully, I don't have any CCTV cameras in my office or at home, because it will be quite hilarious. And I promise you, it's got nothing to do with schizophrenia or whatever. I just enjoy the person that I am, and I'm very comfortable with myself, and I can spend time alone, perfectly happy exploring the world by myself. We always talk about the impact of people around us who have influenced us, who are so meaningful to us, and we decry their absence and we mourn their loss. And I had an epiphany when I was the director of proceedings at my closest uncle's funeral. And it was devastating for me to lose him at a critical time in my life and career. And I realized that if I want to have him as part of my life, I need to embrace those qualities that meant so much to me. And that was a turning point for me. When I hear of somebody passing on, I gracefully let them go, because I embrace those qualities that mean so much to me. The ability to listen, the ability to be present for somebody, the ability to give freely to somebody comes from the experiences I have had with those individuals. And I've consciously embraced those qualities. And it has, I would like to think, strengthened me and made me a better person, a more empathetic person, so that I don't flip the switch when I'm at work and I flip another switch when I'm with my family and friends. I am constant and the same in all the worlds that I navigate. This is who I am. And that then becomes your authentic self, because you're not playing different personas in different circumstances, certain different social contexts. You have to become authentic. Get to know yourself. And remember that the world that we function in, the world that we live in, it's about people. And how do we engage with people? And so when we went to New York, we visited the Queensborough Public Library, and the director at that time, he opened up the conversation. He says, people, we are in business, and it is people business. And that's who we are as librarians and custodians of libraries. We are in the people business, and we need to understand that. And how do we embrace it and become a better person for those people so that we create the kinds of futures and the spaces that they would like to live in? Next slide, please, Ingrid. Okay, so leadership in times of crisis, and many people have asked, how have I managed COVID and most recently the fire at UCT, etc. I'm not going to go through all of them because I would like to think that you would have sight of this presentation, and please go through it, because if you want to refine your skills and your competencies, etc., embrace some of this. I'm not saying you have to, but in times of crises, leadership has to be decisive. It has to be diffused. I had a fantastic team of people around me. Whilst I was at the helm of things, I had people at different levels and throughout the institution taking care of different things. We had the salvage, we had the business continuity, we had communications, we had project management, etc. And this had to be managed by different people. I could not do it myself. Nikki, my deputy, couldn't do it herself. She was assigned the salvage and recovery. Reggie was assigned business continuity and focusing on the disaster recovery plan, etc. The managers knew what they had to do. We had a common goal that we had to work towards. To realize that goal, we had to embrace project management. That was working with teams external to us and within the libraries. Communication was critical. It had to be transparent. You had to have clarity of messaging, etc. So professional knowledge came into play here. What was it that we were working with? What was required? What were the critical priorities that needed to be addressed from a professional perspective, from a recovery perspective, from an infrastructure perspective? So all facets of your profession and knowledge had to come into place here. You will have a lot of noise, a lot of emotions in times of crises. How do you deal with it? Recognize again that we are dealing with people. What are people's fears? What are their concerns? What's the sense of dislocation? We need to identify those, and how do we intervene? What are the facilities available to support people psychologically, emotionally, etc. And remember, these are all happening in parallel, in tandem. And so you need to be alert. As a person in charge, as a manager, as a supervisor, you need to be on top of things. And then the very critical thing is who takes care of that person. Very often, that person is the last person to be taken care of. But you need to draw strength from each other. There'll also be a lot of noise. You need to ignore the noise and just stay focused. But most importantly, ask for help. You cannot do everything on your own. Ask for help. And that is how you'll be able to get through a crisis. Next slide, please, Ingrid. I think we'll speed through the next couple of slides. Next one, please, Ingrid. Right. Okay, so no, previous slide. Okay, quickly. Now, this is for you. right? And my advice for unleashing your potential, I'm not saying unleashing your leadership potential, because that is inherent to this. Choose your attitude. Choose your attitude about yourself as a professional and the profession within which you work. Recognize the importance and how your impact is felt within that environment. Your self-awareness. What is your own potential? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Put it down. Make lists and recognize who you are as an individual. I deliberately ask a question, and those of you, if you are ever in an interview with me, be prepared, because I will ask you to describe yourself, or how do your colleagues see you or perceive you or experience you. You cannot be assured if you do not know who you are. Understand your context, the conditions, the circumstances, the history, the complexity of your circumstances, of where you work. What is the history of your organization? Who were the people before you? Why is the organization where it is today? Why is the university the way it is today? Understand your context. If you're a public librarian or whatever it is, what is the context of your community? You cannot make decisions or choose services or programs if you do not understand your context, because then you're just practicing mechanically. You must have a personal vision or goal, and you must align that with your institution or your section. There has to be synchronicity, because that's what brings out your personal passion and your interests, etc. Be informed. South African librarians, please, you can lynch me after this, but we do not engage. We do not debate. We do not contest and challenge each other's thinkings, because we do not read. We do not engage professionally. We just sit back, fold our arms, and let the speakers do the speaking. We don't engage intellectually. We don't challenge professionally. For you to realize your potential, you have to read. You must belong to professional groups, discussion fora, etc. That's the only way you're going to grow. Recognize, getting your postgraduate degrees is one thing. That's for you and your supervisor. It's what you do on the job. What do you do with it? Today, a master's degree is a dime a dozen in South Africa. And please, I'm not being disrespectful here. I'm being very pragmatic. Take that degree and make a difference to your environment. Don't feel that you are entitled to a position because you have that. It's wonderful you've achieved it, but make a difference with it. Service to the profession. I think I have spoken about leading the profession and being a committed professional. Shift the thinking and the attitude from, oh, what's in it for me? What can Liasa do for me? To what can I do for the profession? What can I do for Liasa? Because the profession and the professional body can only be as strong as the valuable, engaged, informed professionals within it. Look at other professions and see what can you learn from it. And you can only do this if you continue your professional development, lifelong learning, formal qualifications, informal qualifications. CPD defines who you are and your professional growth. Liasa has it. Take it up and do it. Last slide, Ingrid. Don't worry about being successful, but work towards being significant. And significance speaks about impact. What is the impact you are having on everybody? What is the impact am I having? Why have I been invited to speak to you today? Is there an impact value to it? I don't know. And so Oprah says, work towards being significant, and success will naturally follow. We want success immediately upon arrival, not recognizing that success comes when your peers attribute it to you, when they acknowledge you as being successful, when they provide you with the accolades and you have a sense of achievement. Success comes after a lot of hard work. Make sure your journey, the road that you travel is well traveled. You must have the battle scars to show for it. Otherwise, it's an easy journey that one cannot really write about. So thank you very much for listening to me. And I hope we have the opportunity to engage further. Thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you very much, Ujala, for comfortably sharing your experiences with us. We are a little bit over time, but I really couldn't stop you from talking because this is really inspiring. And then indeed, we really need to take charge and be responsible for our own professional development. And where we get lost, we need to ask for advice, whether we are leaders or followers. Thank you very much, Ujala. I'll then hand over to Ingrid, who will be handling the Q&A. And then, yeah. Ingrid, over to you. And then thank you again, colleagues. Hope you are inspired as much as I am. Thank you, Ingrid.
Good morning, colleagues. Yes, it was very inspiring. Thank you so much, Ujala. A really powerful message. Now the floor is open. If anyone would like to pose a question, either in the chat or if you raise your hand, we can have some questions, please. We're getting lots of inspiring and enlightening, stimulating presentation comments. Are there any questions that you'd like to pose to Ujala?
Challenge me, people, challenge me. You can't agree with everything I said. Come on.
Floor seems to be quiet. We're all stunned.
I think it would be a wonderful way of encouraging colleagues to engage, hopefully at the next contact conference, etc. That we should have various fora for engagement, not just paper presentations. But I think this is a fabulous idea, and engaging with people. I came across a post on Facebook the other day where I think it's in Europe, a library where people avail themselves and you can loan a person to have a conversation. Ingrid, I just think that is just such an exciting idea. And if I have to look at the attendees at the session, there are quite a few people I'd love to have a conversation with, and to get to know you better. And how do we create that environment for us to share our experiences, not only through LIASA, but also within our institutions as well, sharing our experiences and what has made me be the kind of professional I am. Not me now, I'm using the universal me. And so take up the opportunity as CPD within your institutions to create a conversation series as well. That would be my recommendation.
I see there are some questions coming through now. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, everyone is just saying thank you, and Rao, what a good talk it is. Excellent idea. There was one that said something about how are we giving past presidents enough platform to continue leading the association? So that is also a good question.
Mm. Mm. There is the President's Forum, but it's mainly past presidents coming together and chatting at conference. But there is the President's Fund also, which, you know, we would like to attract funding for sustainability. It's a philanthropic opportunity, but the idea is not to recycle past leadership.
Yeah.
We need to learn from past leadership and the fact that context change. So you need new thinking, new leaders to come through. And if we're looking at this whole restructuring process that Liasa's been going through quite a few years now, the whole idea of leadership will change as well, because you're going to be looking at a different leadership model. And who's going to take the association forward? We all played a role at different times that required the kind of leadership at that time. And so as the context changes, that's why I always say, understand your context. You will need new thinking, new blood, without discarding the lessons of the past.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. I see there is a question here, what happened to the Carnegie Leadership Project? I know you did speak to that. Yeah.
Again, colleagues, remember that the SELP and the Carnegie Leadership Project were donor funded. We were very fortunate to have received donor funding. And unfortunately, donor funded projects are time bound. We succeeded with having a large cohort of beneficiaries. And I think the South African LIS profession is ready now for another intervention, such as the Carnegie Leadership and the South African Library Leadership Project. Again, contexts have changed, practice has changed, the demands have changed, new people, new graduates are coming in, etc. We are seeing a whole new leadership level as well. And so I think we are ready for another intervention such as this, but I know definitely we will not be able to get funding from these particular entities because their goals have shifted, their focus have shifted. And so we need to ask the question, can we fund it ourselves? Yeah. Can institutions invest in creating? Liasa can create a program, but will institutions fund the participation of their staff? And that's a question that you need to raise as individuals within your institutions.
Very true. Yeah. Okay. I see there's no more questions. Is everyone sure they don't want to ask Ujala anything more? She did have a wonderful talk.
Elon Musk, yes, certainly, Susanna. We can ask him.
Okay. Does Liasa Academy have a place here? I think
definitely, definitely. The Liasa Academy, if my understanding of it is directly linked to the continuing professional development, the CPD strategy of the association. And as the academy, I think it would certainly have a role to play in this. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions, people? Last chance.
Certainly.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's it, Ingrid. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ujala, from us at IGBIS. Thank you so much for joining us with our conversations, and you've really inspired us. I see there's just one last everything. Yes, everyone is very motivated and encouraged by your journey and your mindset and your mindset towards your profession, and that is wonderful, and especially the leadership issue. That is really that it comes strongly through. We would like to take a group photo. So if everyone would like to put on their cameras now, please, then we would very much like to take a group photo. Put your cameras on, let us see who you are.
Yes, I'd like to see some of the familiar faces. Hi, Zuki. I see Ivy Kangale is here as well in the room. I see Lisa Marie, Caroline. Who else? Gosh, Christelle as well, Ustazen. Lovely to see some people who were on the leadership programs as well, and people that I've worked with. So yes, come on, put your cameras on. Zuki, how are you? Yeah, I'm taking over Ingrid, sorry. Yeah. And Suryanda, I can see there. I saw Debbie Martindale. Ingrid, there's Ingrid Thompson as well. Hi, Ingrid. Okay, Margaret from Wits at Sango. Yeah, how are you doing, Margaret?
Okay.
Thank you, Ujala.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So everyone's smiling.
Yeah. There we go.
Kagiso, could you assist, please, just with the photograph?
Kagiso's gone. Susanna is there. And I see Debbie. Hi, Debbie.
Oh, yes. No, I was saying I'm still here. I've already kept a couple. So I think we are done.
Did you take a photo?
Yes, I'm done with that already.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for the wonderful morning that we could spend with you, Ujala.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Ingrid.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
President. Bye, my president.
Bye. Bye.
That is the end of our